We have a lot to talk about with the weather, folks, as we are struggling to figure out what a tropical system is going to do down in the Caribbean. The big question in the shorter term, and I'm talking about between now and the next 48 hours, is trying to figure out if this system is going to turn north or if it's going to continue to head west or do something in between. And that means everything, but trying to figure out who's going to see the worst of the impacts, because I do think it's inevitable that someone is going to get hit by this system in the next couple days or maybe the next several days down here in the Caribbean. So we'll speak on that, and we got to figure out what's going to happen after the Caribbean also as this gets north. But of course, all the details are extremely fuzzy with that because they're fuzzy enough in the shorter term, right? So we'll speak a little bit about a storm system signal we're seeing at the end of the month and how there is a very small possibility that what we'll speak on with the tropics could connect with that storm system towards the end of the month. And then we'll go over today's forecast and then we'll be done with the video. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is our system right here. It is still technically Invest 98L. It's here in the Eastern Caribbean, popping off deep convection. And listen, by the time a lot of you folks watch this video, and it could happen in the next update here in about 30 minutes or so, this could definitely be Tropical Storm Melissa, which is our next named storm. We'll be hearing that name and speaking on that name a ton over the next for pretty much foreseeable future. So did want to note that they could just make it a tropical depression. It might be PTC or potential tropical cyclone, whatever it may be. It's well on its way to becoming a tropical cyclone. This is probably one of the most healthy looking invest I've ever seen since really covering and talking about the weather in detail here. But you can tell it's getting hit by some westerly shear, and you can tell this by how it goes from like nothing right here to deep convection just to the east. So the western side of this system is getting blasted by that shear out the west, and the northern, the eastern, the southern side of the system is thriving with a lot of divergence aloft, a lot of air being expanded out away from the system. But it's a very healthy, still technically tropical wave. So just want to show you a broad look at everything and where this system was. Let's continue to move forward. Now, the latest from the National Hurricane Center only had the update from super early this morning. This is around the 1:32 a.m. update from last night. Another update will drop in probably another 25-30 minutes. In fact, I'm going to try to go back to this at the end of this update to try to catch the latest information. So if you're screaming at me through the screen saying, Mitch, this is Tropical Storm Melissa now, this is a tropical depression, trust me, I see it just like you do. I'm just giving you the latest information that I have. But has a 90% chance to develop into a depression or our next named storm between now and the next 48 hours, and definitely between now and the next 7 days. Just want to show you this graphic, but this is well on its way to becoming, if it's not already, a tropical storm. So let's go over model, guys. Let's go over the Euro first. See if I can speak clearly. This is for tomorrow afternoon. We're going to initialize all model guides with tomorrow afternoon, October the 22nd. Euro says it's a 996 millibar low. So this would make it Tropical Storm Melissa, or at least a tropical depression. Okay, we got Hispaniola right here. We got Jamaica here. We got Cuba right here. And of course, the southeast there. Puerto Rico back here. I think y'all are good. All right, we continue to move this forward and we get into Thursday morning. Not much strengthening with this system with the Euro, and it's really beginning to stall out. That is the big concern. How close does it stall out? Model guys really liking the idea of this, except a couple model runs. If it really stalls out closer to a landmass, whether that be Jamaica, Hispaniola, Cuba, it's going to cause big issues with higher terrain, a lot of lift up against these higher elevations, squeezing out all the available moisture in the atmosphere. So we get into Friday morning. This is still a weak tropical storm. No significant development off the Euro. We get into Saturday. Folks, this is a multi-day period where this is hanging around the same area. Jamaica right here, Dominican Republic, Haiti right there. And then finally, this gets some westward progression, and we get to a 998. Still hanging around the upper 990s. And we get all the way into next Monday, 6 days from now. 987, this thing finally begins to deepen. It's actually creeping deeper into the Caribbean. So one would argue this is finally a hurricane. And then it's getting into a stronger hurricane. It starts to get further north. As it gets stronger, it wants to pick up some latitude, get further north. And then as it does so, turns into a major hurricane. Certainly brings significant impacts to Jamaica if this is the way it plays out, being right here. And then it comes up and hits the southern shoreline of Cuba as a major hurricane, goes right down the middle of Cuba, and then of course has to come up and it slams the central Bahamas as we're getting between, I don't know, sometime late next week. Not a forecast. Now, this thing is way too close for comfort to Florida and any kind of trough interaction. I'll speak on that more. Don't want to get too caught up into that right now. But we got a very strong to major hurricane off the coast of the southeast, right smack in the middle of the Bahamas, Bermuda, and the southeast coastline. And then this thing finally weakens and loses its tropical characteristics as it gets slung out into the North Atlantic. Okay, GFS, what does it show? Latest hot off the press GFS. It continues to want to turn this thing in the next 48 hours or so. This is starting off tomorrow afternoon. This is a 993 millibar low. So the key here with the GFS is it strengthens this much faster. Therefore, it gains latitude, kind of finds that weakness much easier because it can feel the upper, the wind's more aloft more. The wind's higher up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which is going a totally different direction than the trade winds in the lower levels of the atmosphere, which are going more so east to west across the Caribbean. So that's how that works. So this thing explodes in the next 48 hours to a Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane just south of Hispaniola. All right, and it's very slow, way too slow. In 24 hours, barely gets north and then hits Hispaniola, rapidly weakens due to the higher terrain. The higher elevations shred these tropical systems, by the way. But anyways, and there's definitely higher terrain in Hispaniola. And then it gets north of the Big Island here, and we get into Friday evening, and this is kind of just a wide, large tropical storm at this point. And then it just kind of spins around. It continues to bring even rain bands to Puerto Rico, and then begins to gather itself again and re-strengthen. And then it turns back into a strong hurricane, but then it kind of heads back out to sea, right? And moves away. So the GFS is, I know this is kind of a sensitive way to say it, but kind of a one and done deal, right? Brings devastating impacts to Hispaniola. And I say that because the flooding would be catastrophic for these areas. You combine that with the winds, that's bad enough, but the rain, catastrophic, terrible situation. And I say one and done because if this kind of gets more west like the Euro, it would do damage to more people, right? So GFS hightails it out of here. Euro AI model continues just to be weaker, which kind of contradicts the northern turn of this, in my opinion. But gets later this week, we get into Friday morning, it's still just a weak tropical storm, and then does kind of what it does with the GFS and kind of plows whatever this is into Hispaniola. Still a big time rain event, but then it drifts it back to the west and starts to bring impacts to Jamaica. Still a weak tropical system, but tons of rainfall, but never significantly strengthens. And just there's really hasn't been one Euro AI model that has really significantly strengthened this system. Canadian model is an outlier, but it's worth mentioning, and I'm going to speak on it more as we get deeper into this video. But it just flat out cruises this thing further west, interacts with Jamaica this Friday as a tropical storm. Then it gets west of Jamaica, it gets deeper into the Caribbean, spins up. The Western Caribbean is a danger zone for sure. Some of the warmest sea surface temperatures on planet Earth right now. And it really strengthens this into just about a major hurricane. Then comes up, moves northeast, hits Cuba around the same area that the Euro does a week from today, and then brings a hurricane right to the Bahamas. The Bahamas certainly need to watch out for this. Turks, Caicos Islands, even Florida. I mean, this gets close enough to Florida to bring some impacts. And there's some sort of moisture connection. Now, we need to watch for this too. That's why I made the video a couple days ago, and I posted on social media how there can be a weird and wild into October. I'm not just, trying to get the clicks and stuff, guys. There is interaction that could occur here. So we get past day 7, and this is a strong tropical system. And I'm going to stop it here. This is about 9-10 days from now. I'll show you more of this run as we get to the end of this update on the tropics. Let's just leave it here. It's just a faster, all-out faster progression with the Canadian. Icon, what does it do? Latest run, spins us around, brings tons of flooding into Hispaniola through the weekend. It's a weak tropical system, does not significantly develop this through the weekend. So not only do you have disagreement with the direction of this system, with the strength of it also. It's wild, guys. I mean, there is a huge question mark with this. massive, way too big for a short amount of time out ahead of us. So I'm going to start to use this, and I should have been using this a lot more and just utilizing this, but Tomerberg, hopefully I said his name right, runs a phenomenal site. It's, you can see the site link down here, but this is a much more crisp and beautiful way to look at the EPS ensemble, the Euro ensemble, which I usually use weathernerds.com, and it's nothing against them, but I think this is a better way to look at it. So it shows all 51 members, and the members are like these little lines right here. And it throws them all on the screen, same thing, and this is between now and the next 10 days. So it's a 10-day run out ahead of us. The red is the actual Euro operational run that I've already showed you at the beginning of this update. The black is the ensemble mean, so the average kind of path of all these members put together. And you can see just the confusion. It goes like this and a little squiggly. But if you combine it all together, the Euro ensemble is more west. But there is a lot of members also that turn north, stall out, and bring a devastating flooding scenario to Hispaniola. I just think it's inevitable to avoid a really bad scenario in this for someone. It stinks that we could not get out of hurricane season completely scot-free with this, but here we are. We just got to kind of deal with what we got. Now, I want to go past day 10 with this, and I want you to notice how there is a lot of members, not a lot, but some members, I shouldn't say a lot, but that flirt with the southeast and the eastern U.S., and there's some that lag down here. And then I want you guys to note, that's why it blows my mind. I'm seeing posts that people, and I read it in the comments too, guys. I read the comments. Why are you talking about this? Or you can tell there's just frustration in the comments that, what's the point of talking about this? It's not going to affect the U.S. There's no chance. How can you say that? How can you say that? I mean, do you have a time machine? Trust me, there's just no way you can say that when we've seen it before 13 years ago, 13 years ago with Hurricane Sandy. And you can see it as we go past the day 8, 9, 10 range, how there is members that get pulled into the eastern seaboard, into the coastline. There's plenty of scenarios past day 10 that this gets too close to a trough pull interaction and gets yanked into the northeast or Atlantic Canada. There's scenarios there. We'll talk about this more as we go. Let's look at the GFS ensemble from overnight, and it's going to show a wider scenario here. It's not going to be as zoomed in because there's some quicker members here, so it's more broadened out. You got this one lone member wanting to go right into the southeast, but that is an outlier, big-time outlier. But in the short term, like I said, GFS, the operational run is this blue run right here, but the ensemble mean is well west of the operational run. Okay, it's west. And it actually is much closer to the Euro ensemble. Okay. In fact, if you combine it, they're very close to one another. Euro ensemble to Euro, GFS ensemble here. And then you look at the Google DeepMind, and hey, in kind of the longer range of this, same thing. It likes kind of central to eastern Cuba. In the shorter term, it kind of comes up, bogs down, and goes like this. Man, just a wacky steering currents. And it's not unusual for October. This is not unusual. Okay? Let's talk about what promotes strengthening of this tropical system. Sea surface temperatures. 30, 31 degrees Celsius, which is what this is reflecting. And you convert that to Fahrenheit, that's mid-upper 80s. Okay? So check that out the box. No reason to hanging around on this for that long. And this entire area where our tropical system will be hanging out, just very warm sea surface temperatures. And same thing with the Western Caribbean. Okay? So check that off the box. Next thing we'll talk about is wind shear. Right now, the system is getting hit by some westerly wind shear. A lot of upper flow coming out of the west. And you can see it here. Here's a closer look at the system. If you look right here, you can see how there's flow coming up against this system in the upper levels. In the lower levels, you can see, the lower clouds kind of going like this around the actual low to mid-level cyclonic flow of the system. In the upper levels, okay, the flow is working against this system. Okay, and that is why there is a sharp cutoff in the convection right there. It's eating up the convection. A good example is, well, no, there's not really a great example of this right now, but we'll move past this. So if you continue to move forward here, you can see these lines with the arrows kind of embedded into them. They're working right up against the system. Okay, and this is the operational euro, our system right here. They're working right up against the system. It's kind of promoting, well, it's preventing, I'm sorry, any kind of significant development in the shorter term, at least on the euro. And then as we move forward and we start to get kind of closer to the weekend, the flow changes on the euro a bit. Now, and let's move this a little bit more as this thing begins to strengthen. If something like the euro happens, now all of a sudden you get a little bit more divergence aloft around the system. So now the flow's kind of going like this. A lot of airflow is getting pushed out like that. And right here, it gets kind of weird. So just lighter wind shear. The upper levels aren't working right up against this system anymore. But I do think this system will deal with just consistent westerly shear with the life of it. I mean, it might lessen up, especially if it can get tucked deep into the Caribbean and strengthen. But I think this system will continue to deal with some solid wind shear for the life of the system, especially when you got all this wind flow up here. Okay. Now, the next thing we'll discuss is steering currents, and this is flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and we'll compare the euro against the GFS and why, the euro wants to cruise this further west and the GFS wants to turn this faster. So we'll start off with the euro. The euro, the first thing I want to mention, just keeps this as a weaker system for longer, but I do want to mention the flow. The system itself, the reason it kind of slows down on both model runs, almost all model runs, is because it's stuck sort of in a weak spot between multiple different steering currents. So first off, I do want to mention, I'm going to just circle this flag right here. So wind barb, see how the flag portion of this wind barb is pointing, that way? That means the flow is coming out of that direction. So we got flow coming out the west to the east with a trough up here. And we got sort of a high pressure over here. And the flow is coming around this high pressure just like that. Okay, and you can see a little bit of it right here too. And we also have sort of a high pressure right here. It's weaker, but it's certainly there. And there's not a lot of, high-end flow going around this, but you can certainly see it. There's some flow kind of going like this. And this might be steering this somewhat, but probably not a whole lot. So the system's right here, and the model's saying this is a weak system, and it is. It's as impressive as it looks on satellite right now. It's still, at best a tropical storm. So with our system right here, and this is our 500 millibar energy here in the atmosphere, in the mid-levels, this thing is closer to this weak high, but there's not a flow with it. So it's in general right now kind of being steered by the trade winds that are working their way in east to west in the lower levels of the atmosphere through the Caribbean. So as we continue to move forward, this system actually moves away from any kind of weak high pressure influence right in here, and it's way too far away from this up here to be kind of steered. But we have to watch this ridge right here and the flow around it. But in general, this thing's kind of stuck in between all that, and it stays weak, gets pushed more so by the lower flow, by the flow in the lower levels of the atmosphere, which is really just the trade winds. And because it doesn't get stronger, it doesn't feel any flow in the upper levels, which you can't really see on this map, but it's going more so like this, kind of out the west to the east. It's a tricky one. It's definitely a tricky one to explain. So the system's sort of chilling in a dead zone, steering current wise, and that's why you see this just blob of energy just spinning around in place, not really doing anything. And eventually, this ridge actually builds on top of the system somewhat. So, we got flow kind of going like this, and then like that, and then like this, and like that. So kind of an extension, an elongated area of high pressure that actually on the euro pushes this system a little bit deeper into the Caribbean. But eventually, this system gets stronger here, and kind of the influence of this ridge goes away. And just because this system gets stronger, it feels more of the flow in the upper levels, which is certainly different than the flow in the low to mid levels. And I think just because this system gets into a stronger storm system, it gains latitude. And that's exactly what happens. It immediately ejects north and takes off. Now the GFS, it's a little bit simpler to explain. Same thing, this thing's sort of trapped in weak steering currents, and it kind of stalls out. It doesn't completely stall, but it's moving very slow, but it gets stronger faster. In the shorter term, therefore is able to be steered more by those upper level winds that you can't really see that well on here, but are there. Therefore, it gets snatched up faster. It's a stronger system and wants to gain latitude more, and then it just is able to kind of get north and unfortunately hit Hispaniola very quickly in the next few days, and eventually this fully gets picked up and thrown back out to sea. So there's multiple different steering currents out there, but it's not steering the system much. So it's a tough one to explain, but just think of it like this. The stronger the system gets in the shorter term, the more it's going to gain. It's the higher chance it's going to go north, okay? Be steered more by that upper level wind flow. The weaker it stays, the more it's going to be steered more so by those trade winds and just kind of drift west. There's something in the middle that can happen, obviously, too. So it's definitely tricky. I think if you look at the Euro with rainfall, folks, this is between now and, this weekend. Once you start to get into some of these like orange colors right in here, I mean, that's getting to, folks, that's getting to 9 to 12 inches of rain in Hispaniola. And, I will extend this a little bit further out. We'll go all the way out. This is not a rainfall forecast between now and the next week. And we got to watch out in Jamaica. Jamaica could get a ton of rain from this too. This is in inches over here. We just got to figure it out. And, if we look also at, say, the GFS, and certainly don't get near as much rain because GFS wants to get this north, but brings catastrophic rainfall, even to Puerto Rico. Okay, so, I mean, that's 10, 12, 13 inches of rain, even more. So, yeah, it's a tricky one, guys. And one thing that I'll mention is the possibility of an interaction here. So this is getting into this weekend. You see this big blue blob, that's a trough. And then you see a big one that kind of swings down here into the deep south. The trough drops down. This is more of an upper level low because it's fully cut off from the main kind of flow of things, if you will. But that is our tropical system on the Euro. See this darker area of blue sneaking up on your screen? And watch how this tries to connect with this. So there's almost a little bit of a connection there, but this is able to escape and weaken into the ridge. And a better way to look at this is, as far as flow, is here it comes. The flow around this trough digging down, folks, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. It's going like this. It's coming down like this and shooting up kind of like this. So you don't want the flow around this kind of upper level low or trough right here to snatch this up and sling it into the eastern seaboard. And you say, well, Mitch, that's not going to happen. Well, it probably won't, but the Canadian shows a scenario where it does happen. Okay, look how close this system is as we get in the middle portion of next week. It's not that far off the east coast, and then a trough yanks on it here and actually pulls this close to the northeast about 10 days from now. And yes, that is snow showing up because there's cold air interacting with this moisture. And what a crazy scenario that would be. So I don't think it's very smart to totally rule this out. But of course, we don't want to, scream that it's going to happen nonstop because the chances of it happening are very low. So there's a lot to talk about, guys. But as far as today's weather, we got systems swinging through the Great Lakes region. A little bit of moisture down here in the deep south, but a lot of chilly rain. Some of this could be mixing with some snow in the northern section of Minnesota. Let me know. And Maine up here, a little bit of moisture. West is really quiet. We move past this, and I do want to give you, let's see if we can catch an update here. We don't, but let's see if we have any discussions here. Trying to catch that update, guys, and it seems like they would make the upgrade to at least a tropical depression. But as far as watches, warnings, and advisories, we got wind advisories across the upper Midwest, some freezing warnings out there, nothing too crazy. Risk of thunderstorms, light green, just a general risk, nothing too wild. And then the excessive rainfall outlook, nothing to mention. The southeast, another reinforcing cold front will move in. We could get some showers associated with this afternoon, stretching from Louisiana all the way through the deep south to the southern Alps. And we really could use the rain in the Carolinas, but it just seems like these cold fronts the moisture continues to dry up with these cold fronts, unfortunately. But we move forward here, and the rest of the night looks fine. The northeast seems pretty okay today, but we will get some clouds and some rain that could move in. Maybe even a line of thunderstorms could move in through southern Ontario, areas of Ohio. And eventually, as we get into the overnight hours, some lake effect rain could actually get going tomorrow morning. Erie, watch out northeast Ohio. There's been some discussions about this. Not enough cold air for this to be snow, but some lake effect rain could get going, especially tomorrow morning. Several inches of rain's possible up against those favored lake effect regions. So south central U.S., maybe a thin line of thunderstorms makes it through Houston and surrounding areas, the Texas coastline, Louisiana coastline, with a cold front this evening. Outside of that, nothing too scary to really mention down here. Continues to be quiet. And then we got this spinning upper low over the Great Lakes region, bringing some chilly showers, convective element to this. Certainly will be there. Some lake effect action off Lake Michigan, but this is just rain. Could get some small hail with this, would not be surprised with some cold air aloft. But I mean, folks in the UP of Michigan, there's just some snow right up the road. It's not that far, but I wouldn't be surprised some flakes mix in with this one bit, especially as we get into tomorrow. Some flakes could begin to mix in. Western U.S., it's quiet, nothing to mention. Enjoy your weather. Temperatures, pocket of chilly air in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. Warm up ahead of the next cold front moving in, but won't be a big warm up. And then this is the West warming on up out here. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless everybody. See if we can catch an update one last time. And no, we're not. It's probably about to update here in about 5 or 10 minutes. It is what it is, guys. But y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon. God bless.